Hello everyone, my name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about All Quiet on the Western Front, written by Erich Maria Remarque. And before we go into the summary and explanation of this novel, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow and I know to keep making more videos. So this novel is a war novel. It's based in World War One. We see our narrator by the name of Paul, and he's basically in war. At first, he's a very young individual at war, but as the war goes on for years and years, he starts to understand what he has to do to survive at war. Now, this novel is very interesting because the novel really um, argues against war and how horrific war is. There's several scenes where we see basically children, men who are 17, 18, or 18 and above, basically at war. Some of these men are not even fully developed as adults, but because they have a certain age, they're at war. They're fighting people they don't even hate, and that's a very important issue that comes up within the novel, where we see young men killing each other when they don't even know each other or hate each other. The only reason why they're killing each other is because of their countries. Some of them are not even old enough to drink, and they're out there fighting for their country because they have to, because their superiors have told them to. And that's very interesting because several times the narrator mentions that he's killing people and he's fighting for the most part just to stay alive, just to not die, and the other part because he has to, because he has his orders. So in a way, militaries or governments around the world have created militaries with millions of people to fight. And one thing that they asked them to do is to basically forget about the humanistic side of themselves and just take their orders as they come. Now, the problem with this is the narrator mentioned this a few times, where he says that when you go to war that young, you basically lose your life. The life that you had when you were, in your early teens, the life that you had before you reach 18 years old, you basically lose it because you literally, most of the time, people don't come back from war the same. You've been around soldiers who are killing people, you're killing people, gunshots are going off, you're in minefields, you're being attacked, gas attacks, and all sorts of, you know, torture methods are being used against you. You're eating gruel. You're most of the time you're not eating good food. You're always on the alert. You could be killed, at any time, at any point. And several people. There are grueling scenes within this novel where we see young men are being led to the slaughter. Um, you know, it's just it's horrific. There's a lot of horrific scenes where we see these young men dying, and the narrator just says, "You in some parts you lose your humanity. You lose the part of you that makes you a human, and even if you make it back home, it's going to be hard for you to be the same person that you were. The teenage guy or teenage boy that you were, thinking about women and just thinking about how you're going to get a job or a career in life. When you come back from war, life is not that simple. The war is always with you. Some soldiers suffer from PTSD and other mental illnesses, and the there's one thing within the novel. It says losing a limb in war is one of the hardest things you can go through, and a lot of the soldiers within this novel, they actually go through this. They lose limbs, they lose body parts, and they lose their innocence, their childhoods, because they're forever changed. um, there's one scene within the novel. This is pretty much in between into the latter part of the novel, where the author talks about the narrator. Excuse me. The narrator says that when he, after being at war for several years and the new recruits come out, a lot of them basically don't even know what they're doing. Yes, they've been to training camp, they've been to boot camp, and they have been trained how to be soldiers. But when you get out in the field and you're trying to dodge grenades and trying to dodge bullets, it's a whole different thing. You can be scared. You can just lose yourself. There's this one kid that was at war within the novel. It says that when he was in the first, um, I guess, wave of hail fire, bullet fire, and it's just nonstop bullet fire from machine guns and grenades and bombs and gas attacks. He literally couldn't take it anymore. He really couldn't take that pounding of artillery. Basically, a bunch of people trying to kill him. So he kind of went insane and just ran out to the fire and he got mowed down by bullets. So it's pretty mind breaking and soul breaking. War is just not. Um, a fun just a fun topic. It's just not at all. And in my perspective, and probably in the author's perspective in writing this novel, there's no true winners at war. The millions of lives lost, especially in World War I, the millions of lives, the thousands of lives affected. I think even still today, people are still affected by this because you have to think World War I ruined families. It ruined family trees. Basically wiped out a whole generation of men in the United States, in other parts of the world. So it changed. It's not only changed the landscape in terms of generations. It changed landscapes in terms of economy, and really to the young men who are fighting the wars for the Democrats, for the old men, the old Democrats who are leading the country. Um, a lot of the young men, they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to make it to the next day. In several parts within the novel, we do see this. There's this one scene where we see after a battle, the narrator, Paul, and his other friends, they kind of meet up with these girls, um, you know, just off of the bank of a lake, and they basically enjoyed their time with the girls. And to be honest, that's like literally their only escape. They have to live day by day, minute by minute, because when you're at war, your chance of dying exponentially increase. So they got to take the pleasures that they can at war whenever they can. Paul does make it out. He doesn't die. In the beginning of the novel. He goes back, he sees his mom who's battling from cancer, and so he's having troubles at home of his mom battling cancer, and also he's a soldier. He's going to be in the line of fire because this when he goes to see his mom, it's kind of he's like on a break. Um, he's on a break from the army. They give him time to be on a break, and he goes to see his folks. He finds out his mom has cancer, and they're fighting to survive. He goes back, and there's one interesting point within the novel where we see this whole thing about these boots, where there are a pair of boots that a bunch of soldiers that are passed down because when a soldier dies, he's not going to need his stuff anymore. So a lot of times, if the soldier next to you dies, you pretty much take what he had with him, anything that you can use, boots, clothes, his gun, maybe anything you can take from the body that can help you along. And there's these pair of boots of a soldier that died, and several times within the novel we see these boots pass person to person. And every time the boots are passed around, whoever's wearing them basically dies. So the boots in this novel is like a death sentence. And really, none of the main platoon, or not the platoon, but we were introduced to a group of soldiers at the beginning of the novel, and one by one they're basically killed. And later, Paul himself is killed because he's the last one. He gets the boots, and then the book ends. It's all quiet on the Western Front. So the novel is against war. It's very it tackles specific things. The war scenes of people dying, of people exploding, losing limbs. They're very graphic and very bloody. Like there's this one scene where this U.S. soldier he gets hit in a way where his jaw he has to hold his jaw shut with his hands, so he wouldn't bleed out. So the bullet hit him in the head in certain way where his jaw was dislocated, and blood was coming out, and he had to hold it shut. And that scene was very graphic and very descriptive, and you really got to see a close view of how horrific war is. So that's the novel. I think the author really wanted to show um, how we should be against war, because really, war doesn't have any winners at the end of the day. Yes, you can declare a country a winner, but at the same time, that country who won the war, it lost a lot of men, it lost a lot of money in going to war, and to the families of those people who sent their children out to war, they will never recover because their children was taken away from them because of war. And really, this book reminds me of the poem War is Kind. If you ever get a chance to read War is Kind, it's really good, and I think it's very satirical. It really makes fun of war and kind of also depict how evil and not profitable war is for individual families. I guess on a country scale, we can say a country won. In a large scale, maybe a big country won, or if we're thinking about millions and millions of people who are in a country and they lose a couple of thousands of men, that's not really of a huge loss on a country scale. But when we narrow it down to like the individual family scale, one loss is gigantic. So that's one perspective I take from the novel. That's one perspective I take from what the author was trying to get across. And to me, it got across I'm really not one for war. If a country's trying to defend itself against an enemy combatant, I'm with that. Countries should defend themselves, but an act of declaration to go and invade and fight another country for resources or to oppress, I'm not against that. I think right now the world's in a place where pretty much every inch of the earth is basically owned by a certain type of sovereignty. So, defend what you have and live with what you have. That's my perspective, and that's one of the reasons why the author wrote this novel. The author really wanted to get across how bad and horrific war can be for the people, for the boots on the ground. So that's my summary, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that summary. I hope it helped you understand the book better. Please remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys